Well, we're deep into chapter 4. As you can see, we've got video 37 here. We still have a ways to go to. We will definitely be topping 50 for this chapter. It's a big topic. It's the crux of working with SSIS. So what we need to know before we can really continue are what the data types are in SSIS, what parsing is, and how SS is going to validate all of this stuff. So we've got two lectures. I know we've done probably 35, 36 demos here. Let's kind of break it up a little bit, do a lecture so that we can talk about a few concepts. So as you can see on this page, we're getting close to being done, right? Data flow tasks, then we're going to get into the transformations and a few scenarios. Still a long way to go. Now, to fully master the data flow task, to fully master data flow in SSIS requires that you have a really solid understanding of the SSIS data types. And I pulled this out of books online. I thought this was a very good quote for you to notice. It is that when your data enters a data flow in a package, the source that extracts the data converts the data into an SSIS data type. See, not a lot of people are aware of that. You know why? Because the dev team, the development team that did the integration services stuff, did such a great job of hiding all this behind the scenes. So if this is new to you that there are indeed SSIS data types, you probably just haven't been around long enough. But if you were not aware that every time you accessed a source data, that it in turn converts it into an internal SSIS data type, well, kudos to the Microsoft development team for making it so seamless here. But because there is this conversion, that means that you need to know what those integration services data types are. So that's what we're going to talk about in this and the next couple of videos, really. So let's talk about the data flow task itself. There's three basic parts to it, right? You've got your extract the data from the source, transform it, and then load it. What did we call that earlier in the course? You remember that's our ETL process, and we said that SSIS is a great ETL tool. So the data flow is one of our ETL foundations. It's going to do all three of those for us. So all three of those steps have their own data type conversion scenarios. So the source data, you saw it from books online, it converts the source into the SSIS data types, right? Kind of brings it into SSIS to work. Now, when we get to the transformation phase, it depends on the transformation you've chosen. And we haven't broken down the data flow transforms just yet, but there's going to be data type conversion transformation. There's a lot of different things that we can do inside of the transformation. And then the destination, it's all about taking what is an SSIS type and then converting that to the destination data type. And there may be additional transformations at that level that are done by the providers or drivers themselves. So let's start now at the how it works. Okay, so how does SSIS figure out what the source is data wise, data type wise, and then how does it know how to port that to which particular SSIS data type? Okay, well, it must parse the data. Okay, so this is the term. So SSIS loads that source data and it parses it. And it looks at the metadata, and there's a couple of different options it has for parsing the data to fit the SSIS data type. You've got standard parse and fast parse. Okay, so let's take a look at each of these. We'll do standard parse first. So standard parse is built in. Well, both of them are built in technically. But this is just your standard data conversion APIs, OLE APIs that are built into SSIS. They are kind of the biggest, they have the biggest net, meaning that they cover the most data types. They deal with the bulk of the scenarios that you'll ever need to encounter when it comes to data conversion. You see also that it is the default So if you haven't changed it in your packages that you have at the office right now, then they're using standard parsing. And this is available in all of the data flows. So now that those are the pros or the about, and the cons are that there are faster ways of working with certain types of data. So the standard works for most all scenarios. However, next page, the fast parse is going to work faster, ta-da, in certain scenarios, right? So it's the super fast way to load certain types of data, but the cons are that those certain types are a small subset of the data you're going to work with. Notice that it only works with the dates, times, and integers. No strings. And it's also only available in the flat file source or a data conversion transformation. Okay, so this is going to be far more limiting than the standard conversion, the standard parsing, sorry. And you also have to do this at the column level. So you have to go down and say, I want fast parse for this column. I want fast parse for this column, etc. Now, why is fast parse faster than standard? Well, it only accepts data in certain formats. So there's less rigid data type checking, less rigid localization. And SQL Server Integration Service doesn't have to figure out that locale. So anytime you see, by the way, this word locale, you can also, in your mind, transform that, transpose that to international data. Right? If you're in the US, you can start thinking of working with Japanese characters or German language data. And if you're in Germany, you can start thinking of working with Japanese characters or Australian data, etc., etc. So another thing about fast parse is that it only accepts the most common date formats. So I mentioned on the previous screen that it works with dates, but it's not going to work with every date. So you're only going to deal with your most common date format. So you can see there's some that are accepted and some that aren't. So that means your source data has to match that particular date format. Now, if you're dealing with currency, you can't have the currency symbol. It's not going to recognize commas. So very commonly you will see things like this where this is, if we were in the US and it was a 1-to-1 ratio between the US dollar and the euro, we would have written that in the United States with a period. Nope, won't be worked on, or will not recognize it that way using fast parse. It also can't deal with scientific notation where you have 653 plus E6, which think back to math class, so it's 6 zeros, right? Right, so it would not be able to expand that, whereas a data type like a SQL Server data type would be able to handle that expansion for us. So it is limited, but if you can use it, it might just be the fastest way to load large text files. And I'm emphasizing that word large here. You know, if we're dealing only with, say, 20,000 rows, maybe it's faster, but is it faster by 1 second or a half a second or 13 seconds? And in reality, does 13 seconds really matter? Probably not for just 20,000 rows. If we're dealing with 5 million rows, okay, now, the difference between 20 minutes and an hour and a half is quite drastic. So we definitely want to look for optimizations for those large text files. Okay, so it might even be faster than the bulk insert task. I don't know whether it will be faster because I don't know the data that you're putting into it. I don't know what you're working with it. That's one of those scenarios that you can make broad generalizations like this, that fast parse is probably going to be one of the fastest ways to do it, but you need to test it. So I'll show you how to do the fast parse and how to do that type of a comparison a little bit later in the chapter. Now, let's go ahead and stop it here. Let's come back in the next video, and I want to share with you the idea of validation, the idea of what the data types are, how to kind of group them together. And I'm going to show you, I'll keep it for the next, there's some good stuff. I'll see you in the next video.